was driving back from my parents' house and it was late at night. So I took a shortcut other than the usual path I used to go. As I drove through the remote desert of the American Southwest, my headlight pierced the darkness ahead. The air was thick with an eerie silence, broken only by the sound of gravel crunching beneath my tires. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, a shape both familiar and unnerving. At first, I thought it was a long coyote, but as I drove closer, I saw something twisted in its movement, something unnatural. The creature stood on its two behind legs, and its form shifting and shivering with every step it takes. Its eye glowed with a malevolent light, and a chill ran down my spine as I realized what I was facing, a skinwalker. Fear gripped me as I watched it approach, its gaze fixed on me with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. I knew I had to act fast, but panic clouded my thoughts. As I'm getting closer, I just closed my eye and I pressed the pedal hard as I can. It felt like ages being passing by, but when I opened my eye, I was far ahead on the road. Then I look into the mirror. I can see the creature back in the road. I don't know where it went, but it scarred me for the rest of my life. Its glowing eyes still scares me at nights, and I never took that path ever again. Encounter with a skinwalker, my terrifying night in the desert. Date June 10, 2013. Last night, something absolutely insane happened to me, and I can shake off the feeling of dread. I was driving through the desert in Arizona, just trying to reach my destination before the night fell. The sun was setting, casting an orange glow over the barren landscape. As the dark fell, I felt a sense of unease creeping over me. Suddenly, I saw a figure on the side of the road. At first, I thought it was a dog or just a hiker waiting for the vehicles to stop. But as I got closer, I realized it was something far more sinister. The figure stood upright, its shape shifting in the darkness. Its eye glowed with an otherworldly light, and I swear I can feel its gaze piercing through me. I knew it right away what it was. My heart pounding in my chest, I slammed on the brake, my hands shaking as I fumbled for my phone. I managed to snap a quick picture, but even as I did, the creature began to advance towards my car. Terrified, I stepped on the gas and sped away, my mind racing with the fear and confusion. What I just witnessed, was it real or just a trick of my tired brain? But I couldn't shake off the feeling of dread as I drove into the night, the memory of the encounter burning in my mind like a brand. It was a skinwalker. I never want to meet one again. It terrifies me. Okay, guys, I need to share something that happened to me while I was camping last year. I still can't wrap my head around it. It's like something straight out of a horror movie. So I decided to go camping solo in the woods of Arizona. The night was quiet with only the sound of nature surrounding me. I had just settled into my sleeping bag when I heard this eerie rustling outside my tent. I figured it was just a raccoon or something. But then I heard a footsteps, human footstep. My heart started racing as I unzipped the tent and peered out into the darkness. And that's when I saw it, a figure, standing at the end of the clearing, bathed in moonlight. At first, I thought it was just a person, but there was something off about it. It was like the movements were weird, too fluid, too animalistic. I called out, asking if they need any help, but there was no response. Instead, the figure started moving towards me, its steps slow and deliberate. That's when I noticed its eyes. They were glowing in the darkness like two fairy orbs. My blood turned into ice as I realized what I was witnessing, a skinwalker. I just stand there, freeze, I don't know for how many minutes, maybe even half an hour, get inside my tent and zipped it tight. For hours, I lay there, paralyzed with fear, listening to the sound of the creature prowling around outside, like it's toying with me and want me to come outside to get a perfect moment for it to strike me. Eventually, the morning came and the creature was gone, but the memory of the encounter still haunts me. I don't know that if I ever able to go to another camping trip. So yeah, that was my story. Take it for what it's worth. I remembered it like it was yesterday, even though I wish I could forget. The air was thick with the scent of pine, and the underbrush was damp beneath my boots. I was hiking through the northern woods, a place where the sun hesitates to rise, and the shadows lingers like unspoken secrets. It was supposed to be a simple solo trip, a chance to clear my head, but as the dusk approached, an unsettling feeling crept over me. The forest, usually teeming with the sound of life, fell eerily silent. The only sound was the crunch of my footsteps and the occasional distant howl that didn't quite sound like an animal I knew. I made the camp as the darkness swallowed the woods, and that's when I heard it, a low, guttural growl that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. My fire flickered as if afraid, casting long, dancing shadows that twisted into shapes in those tree lines. That's when I saw it, or rather, what my mind struggled to comprehend, a figure, tall and giant, with the antlers that scraped the sky. Its eyes were pits of despair, and its mouth was gaping for its prey, the Wendigo, they call it, a spirit of insatiable greed and gluttony, a corruption of nature itself. It moved with a grace that I believed is monstrous form, circling my camp, drawing ever closer. I could feel its hunger, a palpable force that threatened to consume not just my flesh, but my very soul. I did what any sense person would do. I ran. I ran like hell. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs ached. But it felt like running through a nightmare, slow and futile. The creature toyed with me, an apex predator, saving its prey. I don't know how I escaped, or if I truly did. Some nights I wake up in a cold sweat feeling his breath on my neck, hearing that growl just beyond the veil of sleep. They say it's just a legend, a myth, to scare the children, but I know what I saw. I know what hunts in those woods, and I pray that I never cross paths with the Wendigo again. In the depth of the dense Canadian forest, where the trees whispered ancient secrets and the wind carried the chill of forgotten winters, there lurked a malevolent presence, the Wendigo. It was not a creature easily described in human terms. From the shadows of the wood, we look at the souls of those who ventured too far into its domain. My encounter with the Wendigo happened many years ago, during a winter camping trip with my friends. We were young and foolish, filled with the braveness of youth and the stupidity of those who had yet to taste the true fear. It was on the third night of our journey that we first heard it, a faint whisper, like the rustle of dead leaves against the forest floor. At first, we dismissed it as the wind playing tricks on our ears, but as the night wore on, the whispers grew louder, more insistent, until it seemed to be coming from every corner of the woods. We should have heard the warning signs, turn back and flee from the cursed place. But we were too arrogant, too eager to prove our courage in the face of the unknown. As we pressed deeper into the forest, the air grew colder and the whispering intensified, waving its way through the trees like a serpent hunting its prey. Shadows danced on the edge of our vision, and we could feel the weight of unseen eyes watching off our every move. It was then that we saw it, a figure looming in the darkness, its form twisted and shifting in the darkness. Its eyes gleamed with an unnatural hunger, and its mouth twisted into a sinister grin that chilled us to the bone. I cannot say how long we stood there, frozen in terror, but it felt like an eternity before we found the strength to flee. We ran blindly through the forest, our heart pounding in our chest, the whisper of the Wendigo echoing in our ears like a death knell. Somehow, by some miracle, we managed to find our way back to the civilization, but the memory of that night has haunted me ever since. I have tried to rationalize what we saw, to convince myself that it was nothing more than a trick of the mind brought by the cold and the darkness, but deep down I knew the truth. The Wendigo, it's real, lurking in the shadow of the forest, waiting to be feasted on the travelers who wanders off into its domain. And though I have tried to put the memory of that night behind me, I know that it will always be there, the whispering in the darkness, a reminder of the horrors that lies just beyond the edge of our understanding. Indigo, it's real. Be aware, guys. Mike's paranormal encounter. Mike had always been skeptical of supernatural. Ghost stories and eerie tales were nothing more than fiction to him, a way to entertain bored minds on a stormy night. But all that changed one fateful evening when he found himself face to face with the unexplainable event. It was a crisp autumn night, the air tightened with the promise of impending weather. Mike had decided to take a good stroll through the woods near his home. The rustling of the leaves beneath his foot provided a soothing soundtrack to his never-ending thoughts. As he walked, he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, the hairs on the back of his neck prickling with unease. He brushed it off as nothing more than paranoia, but deep down, a nagging sense of dread beginning to rise in his mind. Suddenly, a dense fog rolled in, obscuring his surroundings and sending a shiver down his spine. Disoriented, Mike quickened his pace, desperate to escape the oppressive cloak of mist that seemed to be suffocating him. But no matter how fast he walked, the fog followed, swirling and shifting like a living entity. Panic began to claw at his chest as he realized he was hopelessly lost, the trees looming like a silent sentinels in the impenetrable darkness. Just when he thought he couldn't take another step, he stumbled upon a clearing, a old, half-destroyed house looming in the distance like a specter of the past. It was as if the fog had led to him there, guiding him to the heart of the mystery that awaited within. Curiosity overcome fear. As Mike approached the house, its once grand facade, now a crumbling testament to the passage of the time. He hesitated for a moment, his hand raising to knock on the door, but before he could, it cracked open upon his own, as if beckoned him inside. Heart pounding, Mike stepped over the threshold, the air thick with the scent of decay and rust. The interior was shrouded in the darkness, save from the faint glow of moonlight filtering through the boarded up windows. As he ventured farther into the house, he became aware of soft whispering sound, like the rustling of the leaves in the wind. It seemed to emanate from every corner, surrounding him with an eerie chorus of voices that sent a chill. Ignoring the instinct to flee, Mike pressed on, determined to uncover the source of the whisper that seemed to be echoing through every walls themselves. With each step, the voice grew louder, the words unintelligible yet somehow filled with longing and despair. At last, he came upon a staircase, its steps warped and worn with age. With trembling hands, he ascended, the whispers reaching a fever pitch as he neared the top. As he reached the landing, he was met with a sight that would haunt him for the rest of his days. A figure stood before him, its features obscured by the shadow, its eyes burning with an otherworldly glow. Frozen in terror, Mike watched as the figure reached out a hand, its fingers curling like a talon in the darkness. And then, with a voice that seemed to echo from the depth of the abyss, it spoke. Leave this place, it whispered, with words sending a shockwave of fear coursing through Mike's veins. Leave before it's too late. With a strangled cry, Mike turned and fled. The echoes of the figure's warning ringing in his ears, he stumbled through the darkness, guided only by the distant glow of the moonlight that filtered through the fog. Finally, he burst free from the woods, gasping for breath as he collapsed on the damp ground. He knew he would never forget the horrors he had just witnessed within the cursed house, nor the chilling whisper that still echoing in the depth of his mind. From that day forward, Mike was a changed man. No longer did he laugh at tales of the supernatural, for he knew firsthand the terror that lurked in the shadows, waiting to capture your soul. And though he may never fully understand what he had encountered that night, one thing was certain: some mysteries are better left unsolved. Hey everyone, I have been wanting to share something pretty wild that happened to me recently when I was camping out in a national park in America. Now, I'm not one to believe in creepy stuff, but this encounter really shook me up. Let me tell you all about it. It was a warm summer evening, and I had decided to take a solo camping trip to clear my mind. The national park I chose was known for its dense forest, pristine lakes, a perfect getaway from the hustle and bustle of city life. I set up my tent near a triangular stream surrounded by tall trees that rustle gently in the breeze. As night fell, I built a small campfire and roasted some marshmallows. Everything seemed pretty peaceful and quiet at first. Just the sound of crickets and the occasional hoot of an owl, and I was starting to feel relaxed when I noticed something strange. out of the corner of my eye. At first, I thought it was just a shadow moving between the tree lines, but as I focused my gaze, I realized it was much larger and ominous. It was a figure standing on two legs, tall and hunched over, like a person, but not quite. My heart skipped a beat as I tried to make sense of what I was seeing. I called out, thinking maybe it was another camper or a park ranger, but there was no response. Instead, the figure seemed to notice me, and I frozen for a moment before slowly retiring back into the darkness of the forest. I was left there, unanswered and unsure what I have just witnessed. I tried to brush it off as my imagination playing tricks on me, but deep down I knew what I saw was real. I stayed awake for hours, listening intently for any more sound or movements, but the night remained eerily quiet. The next morning, I casually explored the area around my campsite, half expecting to find some trace of the mysterious figure. I found large footprints in the soft earth near the stream, much larger than any human prints I had ever seen. They were almost canine like in shape, with long claw marks digging into the ground. As I followed the trail of the footprints deeper into the woods, a sense of unease washed over me. What kind of creature could leave such footprints? Could it be a bear? Even though bears don't typically walk on two legs for long distance, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was dealing with something entirely different was in the forest with me. As the day wore on, I decided to pack up and head back to the civilization. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, as if whatever had left those prints was still lurking nearby, observing my every move. The hike back to my car felt like the longest journey of my life, every rustle of leaves making me jump and fear for my life. When I finally reached the park ranger station, I debated whether or not to tell them what about my encounter. Would they think I was crazy? Would they laugh it off as a bear sighting or something other natural explanation? But in the end, I decided to keep it myself, not wanting to labeled as a person who saw dog man in the woods. Since that day, I have done some researches and discovered that sighting of similar creature have been reported in other parts of the country. People call them dogman or werewolves, creatures that are part human, part wolf, and completely terrifying to look at. Whether or not what I saw was a dogman, I may never know for sure. But one thing for certain, I will never forget that night in the woods. So that's my story. Take it as you will, believe it or not. I know what I saw, and it has left me with a newfound respect for the mysteries that lie within our natural world. If you ever find yourself camping in the woods alone, keep your eyes peeled and trust your instincts. You never know what might be lurking beyond just the firelight. Stay safe out there, my friends. Hi, guys. If you are liking the stories so far and want to hear more stories like this, please consider subscribing to this channel, like the videos, and share them. And keep supporting me. Thank you. Now, back to the stories. My name is Jake, and I got a wild story to share from my camping trip that I did few years back. It's not your typical campfire tale, but I swear every word is true. Here is what happened. My friends and I decided to go on a camp trip in Yellowstone National Park. We have been looking forward to it for months, exciting to explore the beauty and the wilderness and see some wildlife. We arrived at our campsite on Friday afternoon and set up our tents near a secluded area deep in the woods. The first night was peaceful. We sat around the campfire, roasting marshmallows and sharing stories. As it got later, we started to hear strange noises coming from the trees surrounding us. At first, we thought it might be just some animals moving around, but the sounds were unlike anything we heard before. It was like something was growling and snapping branches, but it was too loud and too close for comfort. We brushed it off, trying to convince ourselves that it was just our imagination playing trick on us. But then things took a chill turn. One of my friends, Serena, suddenly pointed towards the edge of the campsite and screamed. We all turned to look, and there it was. A creature unlike anything I had ever seen before, standing on two legs like a human, but covered in dark fur like a wolf, was a towering figure staring at us with glowing yellow eyes. Its face was a mix between a wolf and a human, with sharp teeth shining in the moonlight. I froze in terror, unable to move or speak. The creature let out a loud, guttural growl that sent shivers down my spine. Serena started to cry, and my other friend, John, grabbed a flashlight and shined it towards the creature. For a moment, the light illuminated its massive frame, and we could see its claw digging into the ground. It was easily over 7 feet tall and looked incredibly strong. We didn't know what to do. Should we run? Should we stay and stand our ground? The creature seems to be studying us, almost as if it was decided to what to do next. That's when it took a step towards us, its eyes never leaving ours. John yelled at it, waving the flashlight in the direction, but the creature didn't seem scared or intimidated. Just as suddenly as it appeared, the creature turned and disappeared back into the darkness of the forest. We sat there in stunned silence, trying to process what had just happened. None of us could explain what we had seen. Was it a bear, a massive wolf standing upright, or something else entirely? We stayed up the rest of the night, keeping the fire burning bright and clutching our pocket knife tightly. Every rustle of the leaves or snap of twig made us jump, imagining the creature returning for another visit. None of us slept a wink. The next morning, we packed up our campsite as quickly as possible and hiked back to our car. We didn't talk much during the drive home, each lost in our own thoughts. I couldn't shake the image of those glowing yellow eyes staring at me from the darkness. The people that I have shared the stories tell me it was a dogman, a mysterious creature that lurks in the shadows and watches unsuspecting campers. Some say it's a legend, while others believe it's real, living creature that roams the wilderness. I don't know what I believe anymore. All I know is that what happened to us in the Yellowstone was real. Whether it was a bear, a wolf, or something supernatural, I will never forget the fear that gripped me that night. So, if you ever camping in Yellowstone National Park and you hear strange noises in the woods, be careful. You never know what may be watching you from the shadows. Hey everyone, I want to share something that happened to me last week while we were camping. It was honestly one of the scariest experiences of my life, and I can't stop thinking about it. So, a few friends and I decided to go camping in a remote forest few hours from my home. It was beautiful during the day, with tall trees all around us and the sound of birds chirping. We set our tents near a small stream and planned to stay for 2 nights. The first day was fun. We hiked, cooked over a campfire, and told many stories. But as it got darker, things started to feel different. The forest became so quiet, almost too quiet. Have you ever felt like something or someone was watching you? That's exactly how it felt. As we sat around the fire, I noticed strange noises coming from the woods. It sounded like footsteps, but when we shone our flashlight into the trees, there was nothing there. We all laughed it off, saying it was probably just a small animal or something. Later that night, when we were getting ready to sleep, things took a dark turn. One of my friends, let's call him Jake, woke up suddenly and said he heard whispers outside his tent. At first, we thought he was dreaming, but then we heard it too. It was faint, but definitely there, voice whispering in the darkness. We were all screwed now, huddling together in our tents, trying to figure out what to do. Should we leave and hike back to the car, or stay and hope whatever it was would go away? Suddenly, we heard footsteps again, this time closer. I peeked out of my tent and saw a shadow moving between the trees. My heart was racing, and I whispered to my friends that we need to leave now. But before we could move, we heard a loud crash, like something heavy falling nearby. That was it for us. We grabbed our things and ran as fast as we could through the woods, back toward the trail that led to our car. The whole time, I felt like something was following us, just out of sight. I didn't dare to look back, afraid of what I might see. Finally, after what felt like hours, we reached the trail and saw our car in the distance. We didn't stop running until we reached it, and even then, we didn't feel safe. We quickly packed our tents and threw everything into the car, not wanting to waste any time. As we drove away from the forest, I couldn't shake the feeling that we had been watched the entire time. Whatever was out there wasn't friendly, and I'm just glad we made it out alive. I haven't been able to sleep well since that night. Every time I close my eyes, I see those shadows, hearing those whispers. I keep wondering what could have been happened if we had stayed, if we hadn't run, and we did. So please, if you ever go camping in a remote forest, be careful. And if you hear strange noises or see shadows in the darkness, trust your instinct and live. It's better to be safe than sorry. Stay safe out there, everyone. And remember, sometimes the scariest things are the ones you can see. This happened recently while I was camping. I can't get out of my mind. Last week, a group of us decided to go camp near an old abandoned cabin deep in the woods. We were excited for a weekend of hiking and campfire stories. But little did we know something eerie awaiting us in the woods. The cabin itself was creepy from the start. It looked like it hadn't been touched in decades, with vines crawling up the walls and broken windows staring out like empty eyes. But being adventurous souls, we set up our tent nearby, thinking it would add to the thrill of our camping experience. The first night was uneventful, filled with laughter and crackling of our campfire. But as the night wore on and the fire died down, strange things began to happen. We started hearing faint whispers coming from the direction of the cabin. At first, we brushed it off as the wind playing trick on us, but the whispers grew louder and more distinct. One of our friends, Sam, suddenly froze and pointed toward the cabin. Through the darkness, we saw a faint light flickering in one of the broken windows. It was as if someone or something was inside, moving around with a dim lantern. Fear gripped us all, but curiosity pushed us closer to investigate. Armed with flashlights, we approached the cabin casually, our hearts pounding in our chests As we got closer, the whisper grew louder, but we couldn't make out any words, just eerie murmurs that sent shiver down our spines. Just as we reached the cabin, the light in the window abruptly went out. We stood there in silence, staring at the dark silhouette of the cabin against the starry sky. That's when we heard footsteps behind us, slowly and deliberate, crunching on the dry leaves. Turning around slowly, we saw nothing but the empty forest staring back at us. But the footsteps continued, circling around us like a predator stalking its prey. Panic set in, and we scrambled back into our campsite, not daring to look back. Back at our tents, we tried to calm ourselves down, convincing each other that it was just our imagination, but deep down, we knew something wasn't right. The whispers persistent through the night, echoing in our minds even after they faded into the distance. Morning couldn't come soon enough. As soon as the first light broke through the trees, we packed our gear in record time and hiked back to the civilization. A eerie feeling of being watched followed us all the way, and we couldn't shake the sense that whatever was in that cabin didn't want us there. To this day, I still wonder about the secrets that old cabin holds and who or what was whispering to us in the night. Some mysteries are better left unsolved. But one thing for sure, I won't be camping near any abandoned cabins anytime soon. Stay safe out there, adventurous, and remember, not all places in the woods are peaceful as they seem. Be careful out there. You wouldn't know what lurking in the woods in the dark, waiting for the innocent soul to venture off in the darkness so they can rise upon. So please careful whenever you go camping solo or with friends. Not every beautiful place safe as it seems. Hey everyone, I have to share something that happened to me recently while hiking with my dog Bailey. It was one of the scariest nights of my life, and I need to get it off my chest. Last week, I decided to go on a night hike in a dense forest near my town. Bailey, my faithful Labrador, was thrilled as always to join me on my adventures. The moon was full, casting an eerie glow through the trees, creating strange shadows that seemed to dance as we walked along the winding trail. As we ventured deeper into the forest, the sound of civilization faded away, replaced by the rustling of leaves and the occasional hoot of an owl in the distance. Bailey trotted ahead and her tail wagging happily. But I couldn't shake a sense of unease that had been growing since we entered the woods. About an hour into our hike, we came across a clearing with an old, abandoned cabin nestled among the trees. The cabin looked like something out of a horror movie, its windows boarded up, the roof sagging with age, and the vines creeping up the walls. Despite the creepy appearance, I was drawn to explore it, curiosity overpowering my growing unease. Bailey hesitated at the edge of the clearing, her ears perked up and her body tensed. I patted her gently to reassure her before cautiously approaching the cabin. The air around the cabin felt thick and heavy, as we had stumbled upon something that we didn't want to be disturbed. As we got closer, I noticed strange symbols carved into the door, and it's strange, symbols that I couldn't recognize, but that sent a chill down my spine. Suddenly, the front door cracked open slightly, swaying in the gentle breeze, inviting us inside. Against my better judgment, I stepped across the threshold Bailey following closely behind me. Inside, the cabin was eerily quiet, except for the soft drip of water somewhere in the darkness. The moonlight filtering through the cracks in the walls, casting a long, twisted shadows on the dusty floorboards. I could feel eyes on us, watching from the darkness, but every time I turned to look, there was nothing. Bailey began to growl softly, her fur bristling as we reached what seems to be the main room. I strained my eyes to see through the glow, heart pounding in my chest. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the cabin, followed by the sound of footsteps rushing towards us. Panic surged through me as I grabbed Bailey's collar and bolted toward the door. Behind us, I heard guttural voices whispering in a language I couldn't understand. Growing louder with each step we took, I stumbled over a fallen debris, the cabin seeming to twist and turn around us as if it's trying to keep us trapped. We burst out into the clearing, the night air hitting me like a physical force. I didn't dare to look back, afraid of what I might be pursuing us. Bailey's leash slipped from my hand and she dashed ahead, barking wildly into the night. I followed her blindly, adrenaline surging me to run faster than I ever had before. Branches clawed at my skin, and roots threatened to trip me with every step. The forest seemed to close in around us, a maze of darkness and uncertainty. I could still hear the voice behind us, their malevolent whispers haunting my every thought. Just as I thought we couldn't run any further, we stumbled upon a familiar trailer mark. Relief flooded through me as we sprinted towards safety, the voices fading into the distance behind us. We didn't stop until we reached my car, panting and shaking with fear. I haven't been able to sleep properly since that night. The image of the cabin and the voices that pursued us haunted my dreams, leaving me restless and anxious. Bailey has been unusually quiet, sticking close to me as if she sensing my unease. If anyone has encountered something familiar or has any advice, please reach out. I'm still trying to make sense of what happened and find some semblance of peace. Until then, stay safe out there, trust your instincts when exploring the unknown. Hello everyone, I need to share something that happened to me recently while hiking with my dog, Mark. It was honestly the scariest experience of my life, and I feel like I need to get it off my chest. Last Saturday, I decided to go on a hiking in a remote forest near my town. Mark, my loyal German Shepherd, was excited as always to explore new trails with me. The weather was perfect, sunny but not too hot. With a gentle breeze rustling the leaves, the trail started off wide and well marked, surrounded by tall trees that cast dappled shadows on the ground. About an hour into our hike, we came across a fork in the trail that led deeper into the woods. Mark, being his curious self, started to sniff around, clearly interested in the path less traveled. I trusted his instincts, so we ventured down the narrower trail. The farther we went, the quieter it became, the only occasional chirp of bird breaking the silence. Suddenly, Mark stopped dead in his tracks. His ears perked up, his body began to tense. I looked around, trying to see what caught his attention, but everything seemed normal. Then I heard it, a faint rustling in the bushes off to our right. I called out, thinking maybe it was just a small animal, but there was no response. Mark began to growl softly, his hair raised, which sent shivers down my spine, and my hands began to shake. Feeling uneasily, I decided it was best to turn back and go. As we retraced our steps, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Every now and then, I thought I got a glimpse of a movement out of the corner of my eye. But whenever I looked directly back, there was nothing there. The forest seemed to close in around us, the once friendly trees now looming ominously overhead. Just when I thought we were in the clear, we heard it. A low, guttural growl that made my blood run cold. Mark went into full protective mode, positioning himself between me and the direction of the sound. I scanned the area, my heart pounding, trying to see where the growl had come from. That's when I saw them, two glowing eyes staring at us from the shadow behind the tree. I froze, fear gripping my chest like a vice. The eyes seemed to be moving closer, and I could make out a silhouette of a large, tall figure. It was unlike anything I had ever seen before, tall and humanoid, but with an unnatural posture, unnerving stillness. Mark barked loudly, his warning echoing through the trees, but the figure didn't even flinch. I knew we had to get out from there, so I slowly started to backing away, keeping my eyes locked on the figure. Mark stayed close by my side, his growls becoming more urgent. Just as I turned to run, the figure let out a chilling screech that echoed through the entire forest. It was a sound straight out of a nightmare, high pitched and filled with horror. We sprinted down the trail, adrenaline pumping, branches whipping past us. I didn't dare to look back, afraid of what I might see. The forest seemed to blur around us. We raced toward the safety of the main trail. I could hear heavy footsteps behind us, getting closer with each second. It felt like we were being pursued by something primal and restless. Just as I thought we couldn't run any further, we burst out to the main trail. Gasping for breath, I risked a glance behind us, but there was nothing there. The forest was eerily quiet again, as if whatever had been chasing us had vanished into thin air. Mark and I collapsed on the ground, shaking with a mixture of fear and relief. I haven't been able to stop thinking about that day since it happened. What was that figure? What did it want? And why we were targeted? I have been searching online for similar encounters but haven't found anything that matches what we experienced. It's like whatever it was exists only in that secluded part of the woods. I don't know if I'll ever go back to a hiking in the woods again. The thought of the encountering that figure or whatever it was filling me with a dread unlike anything I ever known. So guys, if you are going on a hike in the woods, please be careful about your surroundings and always trust your guts. Hello guys, I hope you like the stories. If you like them, please consider subscribing, like and share, and also check out other videos on this channel. And if you have any suggestions, any improvements I need to make in these videos and on my channel, please post them in the comment section. So till next time, this is Malayali WENDIGO. Bye.